So hey, you got any progress on the Lord of the Rings movie? We just put out our announcement, and the internet's already buzzing with excitement of our relaunch of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And so we could use some more red meat to throw to the YouTubers to get them buzzing about it. What do you got so far? Well, I got some notes on the cast here. Figured start with that before we start, tailoring the script to their performances. Okay, yeah, casting list for the Fellowship itself is probably a good place to start. Who are our hobbits going to be? That's going to be pretty central to anchoring this project and getting people on board with it. Oh, the hobbits? Yeah, that'll be easy. I already got them down. Let's see. I wanted to do something a bit different with Frodo this time, so I was thinking Daniel Radcliffe for Samwise, Kevin Hart. We've saved so much money on having to use CGI to shrink them down. Oh, that's wonderful. I love it when we can save some money on the budget so I can pocket the money myself. Oh, and for Merry and Pippin, I have Elliot Page for Merry and Michael Cera for Pippin. Okay, so who is our Aragorn going to be? Idris Elba. Oh, excellent. We're going to secure so much ESG funding with this cast. I can't thank you enough. So, who's Boromir? For Boromir, I was thinking we would go with Jack Black. Getting better every minute. What about those other two silly characters that were traveling around with the group? The elf and the dwarf, what were their names? Oh, you mean Legolas and Gimli. Yeah, Legolas, I'm thinking we're going to try to tap Aziz Ansari, and Gimli, his best friend, Amy Schumer. Oh, that's nice. I love her stand-up specials. Yeah, once again, we'll save a lot of money on special effects casting Amy Schumer as Gimli. We won't really have to do much. All right, well, that's a pretty solid list, but people are really going to be judgy if we don't get Gandalf right, so who do you have in mind for that? Oh, Gandalf we have locked down. It's going to help us bring in a lot of international funding. I was thinking we should go with Chow Yun-Fat. This is going to be some good stuff. Hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator, and welcome back to Total Party Skills! Yay! Today's episode is brought to you by the letter C. C is for corporate capture, by the way. As you probably have heard by now, Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema have announced that they're going to make yet another live-action Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yay, because the Hobbit trilogy was great, The Rings of Power was a smashing success, certainly the War of the Rohirrim cartoon that's supposed to be coming out sometime in the near future, that's just going to take everyone's breath away, so the time is hot to get out there and pimp out some more Lord of the Rings action. Plus, we need to recast it, obviously. We wouldn't want modern audiences getting the wrong ideas about Middle-earth should they watch these rancid old films. Oh, they're all book accurate and stuff. Ha ha! What naive times we once lived in. No, we need to expand the universe, make sure that we can have all sorts of spin-offs and crossovers, possibly even with other Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema-owned franchises. Just consider the possibilities of putting James Gunn in charge of Lord of the Rings, and then we can have, Legolas team up with Batman to fight Sauron. Like, what if Barad-dûr became the new Legion of Doom headquarters? That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Oh my god, it would just be like Space Jam 2. Much gets said about the idea that Hollywood is creatively bankrupt, and I don't necessarily think that's really the problem. There's lots of people who go out there with good intentions, with dreams of, like starting their own thing, especially, writers heading out there. They got their screenplays, they have their franchise in their mind, what they think is going to be the next Star Wars, and they get there, and unfortunately, the studios are owned by the same kind of companies that make shoes and soda pop and cars and cell phones and stuff. These companies don't back art. I mean, the people who run these companies might use art as a way to, launder some money, because that's basically what the art world has become. But movies themselves are a product, and since, every batch of Coca-Cola isn't a new variation and twist on what the old previous batches was, they tried that one time and it didn't work out so well. They just keep putting out the product that they have a patent on and that they know is successful. And unfortunately, they take this exact same mindset to Hollywood and storytelling. And so all they can do is just keep selling us the same thing that they already know worked. Also, there's these weird rules about, you got to put things out periodically or you might lose control of the intellectual property and all that kind of stuff. So there might be some legal requirements here that New Line Cinema and Warner Brothers have to jump through in order to be able to keep control of their right to make more movies. They have to make a crappy movie so they can continue to have the right to make more crappy movies. It's this weird kind of self-fulfilling downward spiral that we're all on. And all too often, the fandom is a bit too prone to blaming the people who are just doing their jobs in all this. The directors who get hired, the actors, the writers even. It's not like this was their dream to come to Hollywood so they can taint a once beloved and honored franchise. They wanted to be their own thing and do their own thing and make their own fame. But unfortunately, this is the job that pays and they gotta do it. It's the people at the top of the pyramid that we need to maintain our focus on. They enjoy using their underlings as shields and cannon fodder to keep us all distracted and angrily yelling at J.J. Abrams instead of the executives at Disney and Warner Brothers who allowed J.J. Abrams to run roughshod over franchise after franchise. Certainly he is to blame for the things he has done to the franchises, but he wouldn't have been put in that position in the first place if he wasn't able to give such amazing hand jobs to the executives at these companies. I would like to think that maybe we could hopefully get another good Lord of the Rings trilogy, but I doubt it. The one that Peter Jackson made was already surprisingly close to the books. When those movies first came out, I didn't see the first movie, Fellowship of the Ring, in theaters. I was very trepidatious about the whole thing. To me, Peter Jackson was the guy who made Meet the Feebles, and so hearing that he was going to be making Lord of the Rings in the mid-late 90s seemed insane to me. I know people like The Frighteners and Dead Alive, but to me, I just couldn't get Meet the Feebles out of my head, and what on earth was he going to do? I was expecting it to be something that didn't take the material seriously and was vaguely kind of almost sacrilegious to it. Instead, when I finally did watch Fellowship of the Ring on video, I was, quite blown away by how much it was able to cleave to the books. These have long been said to have been, works of fiction that were going to be hard to adapt, and he did about as good of a job as he could. I might have a few issues about the story pacing in the second of the two movies, Two Towers and Return of the Kings. But considering what they could have been, considering that these were made in the 90s and filmed in New Zealand where they were making crap like Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, and Xena Warrior Princess, those movies could have been such cheeseball flaming piles of junk. And yet they ended up being, classics. I mean, they are movies that you could say are new classics, especially because of the way cable television stations like TBS and TNT and them would, like play the whole trilogy over and over again during Thanksgiving and Christmas vacation time periods and stuff. They've entrenched themselves into the culture as being a common touchstone for everybody. And so the idea that they're just going to up and remake that, sure, it was probably inevitable. But has like really the technology or the society advanced far enough that we need it rebooted? Have we forgotten about it? A reboot should be something that is like maybe 40 to 50 years old, not something that's only 20 years old. It's much like with Rings of Power. The expectations have been set so high the Lord of the Rings set expectations so high that the Hobbit movies made by the same people didn't manage to meet them. And people are going to be holding this bar of comparison up to anything that the studio puts out. War of the Rohirrim was probably really the best shot to get something good out of the stuff I've heard of over the last few years, because at least since it's going to be a CGI animated movie, it will kind of detach you and form its own reality. But, how much of the Rings of Power not being accepted by the viewing public had less to do with, the politics of their casting and all that kind of nonsense, and it had just more to the fact that on a subconscious level, even if you're not savvy enough and really in depth of the lore, you can still sense that this is a close match, but it doesn't really actually link up thematically with that original movie series. And so therefore this is an off-brand generic Coke to the original Coca-Cola. And these studios, like I said, they just like selling Coke over and over again. And unfortunately with movies, they can't. You can't bottle lightning up more than once. You're never going to get the same cast, you're never going to get the same atmosphere, you're never going to get the same sets and locations. You would have to remake the movie so perfectly to what the original was to recapture its magic as to be pointless to even make it. So I guess, as probably most of us are asking when we hear this news, is why are they doing this? Well, it's for cynical corporate reasons, to make money and to retain control over their intellectual property, which is not a good motivation to tell a story in and of itself. They don't actually have anything to say. They don't have some brilliant new interpretation or some brilliant new actor they're going to throw in there. I mean, hell, the way Hollywood is, they're probably going to have J.J. Abrams make these movies. And so, at least, thankfully, the fan base has already been split up over Rings of Power, so J.J. Abrams probably can't make that any worse like he's done with Star Wars and Star Trek, but get ready for it. It's coming, whether you want it or not. Really, about the only thing we can do is just ignore it and move on and find other things to like. Which isn't always easy, especially since the people who control the companies that put out our entertainment are increasingly just falling back to the same old things over and over and over again, reducing the amount of new things there are out there for you to get into. Such is life. Until next time.
Y'all stay waspinated now, you hear?
if you are a Lord of the Rings fan and also a hobbyist who enjoys tabletop role-playing games, I might self-aggrandizingly suggest that you check out Orc and Bone on Amazon.com or DriveThruRPG. It is a TTRPG campaign setting, cued off of the white box rules usable with most OSR, D20, and editions of Dungeons & Dragons. And it's basically delivering something that was hinted at in the Lord of the Rings movies, but we never actually got to see manifest, and that is, this describes what the age of the orc will be. So, check it out.